ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Hi everyone. I found this chat very fascinating because Marius and I actually hardly know each other. We only briefly met a few weeks ago at a meeting. Then a few days later, I got a message from my friend Fiona, the photographer from episode 5, suggesting that I speak to her friend Marius for Meet Me in the Field. It was only once I somehow stalked him on Facebook, yes I do, that I discovered that it is the same Marius whom I had met earlier. I was somewhat surprised, yet very grateful that he agreed to come and talk to us. This podcast is supported by the First Layer, the 12-step workbook on working through the 12 steps in any addiction in 21 sessions. There's also a 24-day step coaching and counseling program available based on the First Layer. For more information in this regard, go to www.freddy.org.za and click through from the notices at the right of the homepage. Sit back and enjoy Marius' journey. Marius, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Hi Freddie, I'm well, thanks.
Good, I'm very well, thank you very much. Welcome to Meet Me in the Field. And it used to be a green chair, that was the guest chair, but now I bought a new one. So that's welcome to the black chair. I think you're the first person in the black chair. So
oh, wonderful.
Honored. I hope you appreciate it.
It's comfortable, thanks.
This is really exciting because you're somebody that I met only recently. And we spent very little time together. And then through our combined friend Fiona, the photographer of one of the earlier episodes, she suggested speak to Marius. And I said, yes, why not? So here you are. Thank you for coming through. What I do know about you is you have a Dutch-sounding surname. So,
Yes, my surname is, and I always spell it, because if I say it, then people get it wrong. So I'm going to spell it and then I'll say it. It's V-A-N space D-E, no R, space W-A-L-L. So it's Van der Wal.
Van der Wal.
Van der.
Van der Wal. Okay. And that is very much Dutch.
It's very Dutch.
So are your parents Dutch? Your father especially?
I'm a fifth generation South African.
Okay,
basically, my father's great-granddad came to South Africa as a reverend, a dominee in the Dutch Reformed Church. And he was the second reverend of the Tweetoren Church in Bloemfontein.
Oh my word, okay.
And that's the church where my father was a reverend later on, and where my father retired in. So yeah, I come from a line of dominees. I don't know what happened with me.
I know nothing about genealogy. And my brother did a study on that at some stage because he carries the family names. And afterwards when I asked him, so what do you know now? He said, well, all I can really tell you is in our family, either you became a theologist or you became an alcoholic or both.
Yeah, with us it's very much theologist or an attorney.
Is it? Okay.
And in my early days I became an attorney, but I quickly found out that it's not for me. Discovered my mistake.
But you went through all the studies?
I went through all of it.
That's insane. That's completely insane. So what I can gather is you obviously grew up Dutch Reformed.
Yes.
Where do you stand today?
Within the context of the church?
Yes.
How much time do you have?
Okay, the talk starts now. 1 minute.
Well, basically, I've had this long journey with religion. From a very small age, I was uncomfortable with the whole idea.
I can identify.
And it was like, something that, in a lot of respects, didn't make sense to me. And then I felt guilty about it, and I felt, oh shit, am I going to hell? Because this is kind of, I felt like the odd one out, like the only one. I remember one of my earliest memories was I sat in the church, and I looked around me, and I looked at all these people, and they all looked so faithful to me, and I thought, am I the only one here going to hell?
Am I the only atheist in the village?
Because I don't get this. And
I didn't as well. I felt exactly the same.
So it was a very long journey, and we can stand still at some of the phases in that journey. And I've made peace with a lot of it. And today I call myself spiritual, which is also a very broad term. spiritual in the past was something for me that hippies and people, yogis did. So it's changed a lot for me. My concept of spirituality is a very practical concept. And I went through, very big transitions in my whole journey to get to this phase.
Yeah.
Religion as such still does not make sense to me in the context of what we were told.
Yes, I can identify with that. Could you ever have the conversation with your father that, Dad, I'm struggling with this?
Absolutely. My father was very open about it. And what I remember about my father is we had this long debates about it.
Did he ever tell you that you're going straight to hell?
Never.
Never? Oh my God. That was a bad one.
He was a very kind person. I remember in one of his last congregations, he would, for instance, go to Jewish people that wasn't in this church, but he will do what we call huisbezoek, where you visit people at home. My father was very, very much traditional about the huisbezoek.
The good old days. We had to dust off the Bible because it was coming.
And then he would go to these people and he would also read from the Bible, the Old Testament for them, and he would do a prayer. But he did nothing that would offend them.
Okay.
He did something that he looked for the commonalities between the religions.
And
that is very much how my father was. He was a Christian and he believed that Jesus died on the cross for our sins, and he believed the traditional stuff. But he was also the first to say, if we had arguments, that he just doesn't know.
Okay.
He didn't pretend to know everything. And he would say that it's not for him to know this. So that I really appreciated from him over the years. And it gave me that openness to talk about this stuff.
Fantastic.
So there were a lot of times that we did not agree on stuff.
Oh, well, I can't think that I ever could have told my parents that I struggled and I don't understand. No. It was just not an option. Just not an option. You grew up in Bloemfontein.
Yeah, mostly. Being a German son, we moved around a bit. And from my standard 3 year in 1983, we settled in Bloemfontein, and then I did the rest of my school career there. I studied there. I did my 2 years articles to become a lawyer there, and then I moved to Pretoria for a year, practiced as an attorney. Then I left the law, and I lived in Joburg for basically 16, 17 years before coming to Cape Town 3 years ago.
What made you think that you wanted to be a lawyer?
I went for it's terrible to admit this, I went for my psychometric tests in standard 9, as you do, to find out what you should do.
Oh, the days when you grew up in the days when you did psychometric tests.
Yes.
With us it was kind of, you have options, a teacher, doctor, or whatever, and the straatveerta.
Yeah, it was basically within that context, and then the test results were that I should go and do drama and journalism and something like psychology. And the lady said to me, just don't do law. And I think when you tell me not to do something...
No. Are you serious? So they told you not to do law and you went to do
then
law.
I thought, I will not do what I won't let you tell me what not to do. I will go and do it then. But that's one part of the picture. The other part of the picture is also that, those days, it was pretty much a thing you've got to get as career. So it was more or less becoming a doctor or an attorney. So the whole idea of going and doing drama is we were always raised with this whole thing. You've got to have maths till matric. And you've got to go and study something where there's work. Otherwise, you will never get work. So that was like the fear, almost like the fear of hell that was in you. So that was part of me studying law.
Okay. I sometimes wonder why my parents were so lenient with me when it came to study choices. But then I remember I was quite clear that I'm going to become a sports psychologist. That was it.
That's also a career.
Yeah,
it's like very much a thing.
It was only when I got to Barcelona that I hated psychology that it became...
But now you're counselor, so you didn't really hate it.
Yeah.
I guess.
I never hated how can I put this? I found psychology too theoretical. So theoretical that I actually failed psychological theory. I could not get it. But I loved sociology, which was far more practical, and counseling was also far more practical. So psychiatry I still struggle with. When you left law, what did you do? What were your options?
Well, at that stage it was like a crisis because I was in this whole perspective of if you hadn't studied for something, you can't do it.
Exactly.
It was a bit the old days. So I very practically thought, okay, I want to be in something more creative. And I mean, the creative side of me started screaming. And then I looked at what is the kind of creative careers that you can do without necessarily studying it. And one thing that stood out was advertising. So to make a long story short, I put myself out there. I contacted the 5 biggest ad agencies in the country.
Why do I feel the word arrogant was
Arrogant is maybe
the
because
appropriate
I
word
only
to use.
contacted the 5 biggest ones, sent my CV, and then the one actually came back to me, and I went there and I did some tests, and then they said I qualify. I'm exactly the kind of person they want as an accounts executive. Now I should just wait for a job.
Oh my God!
And
So
in
what
the
year was
meantime,
this now?
this was end of 1998.
Okay.
So then the lady there, Rina Bloomberg at that stage, who was at that ad agency, also were brought in to go and run an Afrikaans talk radio station. I don't know whether you remember the old Punt Gesels radio. It was a talk radio station which
I was in Cape Town by that time already.
It wasn't in the Cape as well. It was
In
the Cape
that
as well.
time, in that stage, I was also in a very, very non-Afrikaans phase. I was in Afrikaner Guild. I didn't want to identify with Afrikaans or anything like that. So that was a dark phase in my life.
But this was quite a cool radio station. It was based on the 702 concept.
Okay.
Kind of thing, but for Afrikaans. And I still think if there were if there had been enough money and management and stuff into it, it would have made it.
Okay.
But anyway, to make a long story short, she said to me, I can wait a couple of months and go to the ad agency, or I can start immediately at the radio station. And I was so desperate to get out of law that I said, okay, let's go for radio. And so I landed up there doing advertising sales in broadcasting, and this whole new world opened up for me. And it was like so exciting, all these personalities, people on air and that kind of stuff. And it grabbed me in, and at a stage I thought, now I would like to go and do television, not knowing anything about television. And one day, a lady that used to work with me had been told a producer about me, and a TV producer contacted me and said he wants to see me, and I went to see him and he gave me a job and I landed up on TV. That was the year 2000.
The year of our Lord 2000.
And I'm still in television. It just happened that way.
And it's always been behind the camera and behind the microphone.
Always behind the camera.
Okay.
Producing, directing.
Okay.
First, that first job with him was like starting off as marketing, going into production management, and then went into directing. So it was always been directing and producing.
You make it sound like a very smooth transition into directing. Surely it wasn't that smooth? Or did it just come naturally for you?
It's like anything, I guess. Nothing is as difficult as we make it look like. I mean, if you're open for it and if you are naturally inclined into that direction, it happens.
Yeah.
It's obviously not. It's that thing. We don't need to study to become something.
Absolutely.
And if you find your niche or you find your place, then it will happen.
You find your passion, it will
your
be there.
passion. So it was a lot of times I thought that people are going to catch me out. I actually don't know what I'm doing here, and I don't know whether I can do this. And I'm the only one who knows that I can't do this, but let's pretend doing this and go on.
So now we're in the, what can I call it? I want to say drug, sex, and rock and roll. The entertainment industry is always what I think of those type of things. How does what shall we call you? You sound like a Christian with an identity crisis.
A Christian with an identity crisis.
or what would you have described yourself as at that stage?
Are we now back to religion and spirituality?
We're now pulling the line back to where you are in your life in terms of spirituality.
Okay. So what happened to me is I first had, and I think a lot of people associate with this. So yeah, I didn't have a problem with Jesus as such. I mean, I think that preachings of Jesus, it's universal stuff, and something that anyone can associate with. I had a problem with the exclusivity of it all. That if you don't confess and admit that, then you are going straight to hell. And I've always had this whole thing, and I think a lot of us start out that way when we start questioning this. I mean, what about people that's never heard of that? What about people of other religions? Are they now really excluded? And I mean, that's the teachings of the church. So it started out there, and obviously another thing that played a part in my development with religion is the fact that I'm gay.
I'm waving my arms.
And that was as such also a big thing of what now. I mean, this whole thing of we've been raised, or the church told us that it's a sin, and what now? And that it's like an abominable. What's that word? Sin.
Abomination.
Basically, you are going straight to hell.
Absolutely.
And so that was my early days of religion, and then I just basically drifted away from the church.
So at what age, sorry for interrupting, at what age did that come into play, your sexuality? Can you remember?
I was very, very young when I realized that I am so-called different. In my teens, it became a very internal conflict. It was like that thing of being in an all-boys school.
Oh, my word.
And this whole thing of, okay, I've got this thing, and it is according to what we've been told wrong, and what now? And yeah, that is, I was in the university when I came out of the closet, and always with the support of my parents, I have to say, support of my family. There were no.
So you came out to them, and they were okay with it?
Yeah. At that stage, I was in a relationship with another guy whose father was also a doorman.
Oh my God.
Well, and one of the first things my father said to me when I came out of the closet is he said, "Now I wonders if we want to marry, who's going to marry us? His dad or my dad?" So, they were very open about it, and my family was always very open and supportive
That's
about
amazing.
it. So I've never had any issues in that regard. Yes, but it played a role in my development spiritually, and the initial questions that I've had about religion then started escalating. It got to the point where stuff more and more did not make sense to me. But I was for years like the hamster in the wheel. It was the same stuff that I had problems with. It didn't evolve.
Okay.
I had the same issues. I had the same internal conflict and not about the gay thing anymore, more about the thing that I cannot subscribe to this one religion, and if I do not, that means that I am excluded and that I'm going straight to hell, and all of that did not make sense to me, but it was always a thing, but what if it is true?
Yeah.
What if? Today it sounds like very naive stuff to me if I look back at it. But it was real.
I was utterly the same.
It was real.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, we are indoctrinated with that from a very young age, by the lack of a better word. So for years and years, I went on in this whole little hamster the wheel problems with it, and I would always bring that up, and always it became a hobby for me. God became a hobby for me. It was like this whole thing of whenever I was in the situation, I would ask other people, so what do you think about it?
Oh God. It sounds as if you're going through some mental masturbation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, at that stage, I was still actively drinking, so it was one of those night conversations.
Drunken philosophical conversations. I used to love those. I'm so glad they gone.
A discussion going nowhere.
How old are you now?
I'm 46 years old.
Wow, so you're that close to me in age? Okay, I thought it was much younger. Alcohol, alcohol is a preservative. You just proved again. Don't if anybody does anything.
That makes sense. I'm going to remember that line.
You absolutely.
Oh, that's a good one.
Now, let's call it the mental masturbation phase is playing out, and you're in the entertainment industry, and it seems as if you have kind of a jolly philosophical culture around you. That's kind of the picture that I have in my head.
A hedonist living.
That type of thing, yeah.
Having fun.
Yes, absolutely.
Life flies while you're having fun.
Yeah. And when and how did that change for you?
Yeah, you see, for me, it was, there was a lot of years that served me, and it was good, and I had I was having fun, and I look at it back a lot of times fondly. So it wasn't just all doom and gloom. But the whole thing, the disease of alcoholism, is a progressive thing. So it kind of buggered out by the lack of, I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to swear. Anyway.
I had to classify it in such a way that we are going to swear, we are going to talk about
really?
So go for it.
Okay. But so it got to a point where it was in the last days, it progressed quickly. And
in the last days.
So I am almost.
It sounds like, a patient dying of cancer in the last days really progressed very, very quickly.
So I am sober for almost 3 years now.
Excellent.
And that last year, it went downhill before I got sober. I moved to Cape Town. I was in a relationship that didn't work out. I was new in Cape Town. I sold my properties and stuff in Joburg, and I was suddenly here in the city, not knowing a lot of people. Well, I've had my friends and stuff, but it was a big transition and feeling all on by myself. And the writing was on the wall. It was like the couple of things happened, and on the 31st of October 2015, yes, I went to my first AA meeting and joined the rooms.
Did you get clean through the rooms?
Yes.
Oh my wow! Oh my
Yes.
wow! Oh my word!
Yeah,
That's excellent. I love hearing stories like this. Have you relapsed yet?
Touch wood. I say touch wood. I say that with respect because I always see how I've seen it, how quickly it can happen. And we are never immune to it.
I believe there's a relapse inside me, and I just haven't relapsed yet.
Yeah, there's a relapse inside all of us.
Yeah,
I think.
Absolutely.
I had a very bad patch beginning of this year, end of last year, and I still look back at it and think it is actually a miracle that I did not relapse. But so for me, it's just to rewind on this, like 5 or 6 years ago, and I know this is controversial to some people. I know that it is a topic that there's a lot of perspectives on it and opinions on it. But 5 or 6 years ago, I went to Peru to go and do some shamanic work with ayahuasca and San Pedro, which is the they call it medicine work, stuff that grows. I mean, ayahuasca only grows in the Amazon, and it's a combination of 2 bark trees and stuff, and it's been used there for hundreds and thousands of years. And I had 2 reasons why I went. Well, just to give a background on that, I had friends doing that, and they subsequently moved to Peru, and I saw the progress in their lives, how they completely got off antidepressants and how they got quality of life. And I'm not predicting getting out of antidepressants. I myself am on a light one. Just saying, I saw the progress in their lives, and then I thought, but this can only be positive. So I went down to Peru for basically 2 reasons. The one was to get myself to work on my alcohol behaviors.
Issue.
It was not necessarily to stop drinking, it was to try and get to a place of controlled drinking. And the other one was to work with this obsession that I have developed about dying and about religion, because I got obsessed about it.
Okay.
It was like, at a stage, it was literally an obsession.
You mentioned that your father's passed away. Was that around his passing, or
it was after he had passed away?
Okay, yeah. So that triggered the...
Yeah, I won't say that one had anything to do with the other one. No, I don't think it had to do with each other as such. Okay. So I went on this journey to Peru, and I did this work with the shaman. Extremely hard and difficult work. Very challenging. It was something that I would always see as one of those big moments in my life.
What is the wicked tongue, if you don't mind going into a bit more detail?
You know, it's and once again, I will only recommend this for people who really feel that they are ready for it, and that they do their research. It's like almost doing some kind of indemnity here. It is a very strong potion by the lack of anything else. All natural, so it's like a herbal tea
Yeah.
that you drink within the context of a ceremony with a shaman, and where you go into this, some people call it hallucinations, hallucinatory state. Others will call it visions. Others will say that you enter a paradigm reality.
Yeah.
Or,
Another realm.
another realm. Sorry, not that paradigm. But so whatever it is, very strong stuff happens to you, and very significant stuff happens to you in a spiritual way. I went there, I did it, it was challenging, I got back home and life went on. Somewhere along the way I realized that, okay, this obsession about God and dying was not anymore that it wasn't as big there.
Okay.
So I guess in a way, something of that has shifted a bit. But I kept on drinking. But now I also have to say, another thing that happened there, and we might touch base on it later, is in one of those ceremonies, I saw a cow grazing in the field. And at that moment, all the pain of all of the animals of the world manifested in me, looking at that cow, of what we as human beings doing to them.
Aha.
That was a little vision, it happened. I came back home, and I went on with my life. Now, 3 years later, down the line, I landed up in the rooms, becoming sober. And last year, I became vegan. So I never know, it's like, I don't know whether the seeds had been planted there or not, but I think with all things spirituality, we can't look at stuff in isolation.
Yeah.
That the one leads to the other and they slot into each other.
Yeah. We built the puzzle as we go
Yeah,
along.
yeah. And who knows?
Did you immediately make the jump to veganism? You didn't go vegetarianism first or pescatarian or what you did
No.
first?
Well, the one evening I still ate meat, and the next day I said, okay, I'm vegan. But it sounds
That's
like,
a bullshit commitment.
it sounds like an immediate jump, but it obviously is not.
The mind
like
process
I said, that thing happened there while I had that ceremony, and along the way I got aware of how we are fucking the environment up. Sorry for my language. The whole factory farming system.
Explicit. That's the word I'm looking for. We are classified as explicit. So by all means, fuck forth if you want to.
What we are doing with the whole factory farming system with cows, and the emission gases with cows is more than is worse than what we do with all the transport in the world, etc., etc. And at a stage, I've realized that a pig is a very sociable animal, very intelligent, more intelligent than dogs. So I started becoming uncomfortable eating steak and pork. And I look back at it now, it's so arbitrary. So why now feel uncomfortable to eat this one and that one, but still fine to eat the rest? But that is where I was. And then
it's amazing how the brain process works in terms of this. You just kind of, you have to connect the dots, and you have to take your time to connect the dots. So you just took your time to connect the dots, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And then last year I heard of this book, Eating Animals, by Jonathan Safran Foer. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah. See, it's the same guy that wrote Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, which is on your shelf. I know, but I've seen the movie.
Lovely.
I've seen the movie, so I'm actually surprised that he's the same guy that wrote that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. But anyway, so I read this book, Eating Animals, and literally the evening when I finished the last page, I just said to myself, now that I know this, I cannot pretend not knowing this. And just to say, the big book does not promote veganism as such. It just gives the facts of what we are doing. What we are doing with the environment, with the factory farm system, with animals, what we are doing to the animals. And it gave me that awareness. And I read the last page, I remember I was still with earlier that evening with friends where they gave some, pork belly or whatever for dinner. That was literally the last meat I've had. And the next day I said, okay, I'm vegan now.
I can't remember the last meet I had. I can't remember what it was. It was also such a weird experience for me. Well, I'm vegetarian. I haven't done the whole. But anyway, I just opened the fridge that day and I realized, oh shit, the meat's finished. And I closed the fridge and I realized that I'm going to buy meat later today, but I'm not going to buy for me. I'll buy for my husband, but I'll make meat for him. And it's weird because for very long I struggled with the idea I'm not going to make meat. I'm not going to make food for two people. And that day it was just kind of, I'll do that. I'll make more vegetables and I eat that and he can eat the meat.
So what do you think what happened for you then?
I don't know. It was just one of those, let's call it a spiritual awakening.
But that's
and what drove that was I started following a guy on Twitter who posted all this stuff about pigs and how intelligent they are and how they suffer. And oh my God, I eventually unfollowed him. I'm sorry, I can't remember who you are. I'll start following you again. I was looking you up. And every time I ate meat, I couldn't get those pictures out of my head. And the chickens in batteries. And oh my God. So it was also long. I suppose it was a 2-year period of thinking about it, starting to talk about it, becoming aware that more of my friends are becoming that aware of it. And then eventually, just that day, it was the stars were aligned.
Absolutely. And I think it works that way. And I always say, because it works that way, there's no way for me to try and convince someone else to become
exactly.
vegan. It's a very personal thing. We all go with our own beliefs to a table when we eat. And people will sometimes pick on the poor vegan and say they come with a strong belief system to the table. But meat eaters also come with a strong belief system to a table, thinking that, they've been raised that it's good, you need that,
Yeah.
It's part of the food chain, and it's not necessarily. But so the thing is, I don't try and convince people, but I like to plant the seeds. Subsequently, when after I became vegan, I developed in sobriety. I developed a huge sugar problem to the point of where it was like an eating disorder. I just went all the way with ice cream and stuff. It was really.
Me too.
I think we all do.
Hashtag me too.
And I gained so much weight.
Oh my God, you're so thin.
Yeah, but I weighed like last year this time. I weighed like 25 kilograms more than now.
Are you serious?
And when I got vegan, the sugar cravings went. And also what helped is that dairy and stuff, I wasn't allowed to do that being vegan. And for me, it's better to know I cannot do this than I can do a bit, because I can't do a little bit. That's not how I operate.
So you're also black or grey, black or white. Give me grey. I swim around in that grey area so fabulous.
Exactly. And
everything becomes
debatable. We can't, people like us can't do anything in moderation.
Exactly.
I became so healthy, I lost weight, I became very fit, and I have to say, I've done it because of ethical principle-based stuff, but if I look back at it now, I also would have done it because of health. And, at this stage, there's 3 people I know of that turned vegan because of me. Not one of them did it for ethical reasons. They did it like, they see what it did to me.
You look so fabulous.
No, I don't want to say I look fabulous, but they did it for absolute vanity reasons. And I say, that is okay. If that is the way that you reach people, that is fine.
Exactly, yeah. But let vanity prevail, but let veganism come into that as well. Yeah. Was there a spiral effect from veganism to a stronger awareness of how we fuck up the universe generally? We spoke about it before the podcast recording about my issue with plastics and eco bricks and those type of things. I've always been aware, and I've always been, because the universe is my higher power, nature is my higher power. So I've always been aware of how we fuck up nature. But since I've taken action in terms of the fact of not eating meat, I feel empowered to take action on more things. If that makes sense. So I've now started, for instance, doing an eco brick. Yeah. And we've always recycled, but I'm more aware of, I normally just move everything in. Now I'm more aware of what is actually recyclable and the rest goes into the eco bin and those type of things. So was there any awareness like that for you as well?
I think it inevitably happens. I mean, here's my water bottle in next to me, which is not plastic.
And there's mine, that's glass.
So that is kind of this thing that happens. It's like now when I go and do shopping, I have had my naughty moments where I do use the plastic bag. But I've also now made this rule to me: if I've forgotten my, those bags.
Do you do that as well? You walk into the shop and fuck my bags in the car.
But now I've got this rule, then I have to buy another one because that will keep me.
Yeah, I walk with the groceries in my arm. If it's not that much.
That will keep me accountable.
Yeah.
Because it's just too easy to get that plastic bag, thinking only this once. But so yes, it grows. It spirals out, and you get aware of more stuff. In that respect.
Like the straws.
And you know what is so funny to me? I mean, I've got this breakfast club on Saturday mornings.
Oh, lovely.
And these guys, it always ends up all of them talking about me being vegan and vegan this and vegan that and stuff. And one has confessed to me that they always talk about afterwards that that's all that I'm talking about. And then I started testing them. So we'll go to the breakfast and I won't say a word. And then they start with it. And it's one of those guys that now recently said, okay, he's turning vegan for 30 days. And I have to say another friend of mine who did the 30 days thing as a result of me just kept on doing it.
Oh, fabulous.
So the seeds are planted. But people think it's you talking about the whole time. They talk about it the whole time and they think it's you. So I'm just saying, I've tested it. I've keep my mouth shut. And if you see next moment, then they go there. But you know what I've also seen is I've seen with other people doing the vegan thing is that some people are really very aggressive and serious about it, and that doesn't serve the purpose.
Yeah.
I think it's very good to be light-hearted about it, to take the jokes that's coming your way, even if it's not always funny, and to joke with them, and to guide back, and to tease back. That is what works for me. It's to keep it light, although it's a serious.
I do the same. Even I was quite offended yesterday when I got this meme that said, to all meat eaters, enjoy your bra day, to the vegetarians, enjoy your garden. And my first reaction was going, fuck you. And I was going to respond to the friends and I thought, no, this is a joke. And this is exactly how it should be taken. And I got it 4 or 5 or 6 times. So by the 6th time I was completely desensitized. So it was completely okay.
And you know what's so funny is that they don't realize how not funny. All those jokes are not funny.
True. So, as things stand today, what do you do to practice your sense of spirit? What is your sense of spirit today?
Okay, I'm glad that you're coming back to that because I don't want to make this sound that it's all about vegan talks. That's just the one little aspect of my life.
So I started what I call, whenever I do a special topic for Meet Me in the Field, I call it the sidebar. So shall we do a sidebar, Meet Me in the Field goes vegan? Or Meet Me in the Field goes anti-meat?
Yeah, because I don't want to make it sound that it's all about that, because it's not. I'm now almost 3 years in recovery. And I have to say, my early days of recovery, I was very much afraid of this whole thing of this 12-step program, bringing God into the picture. And I was, like a lot coming into the rooms, skeptical about it. And I was also rebellious about it. I was kind of not going there, not going to step 2 and step 3 and that stuff.
Are you serious? So you struggled to actually get down and do the right thing?
And my first sponsor, I must say, was very light on me with that. And he kind of focused, and I think it's very good that as long as there's just the willingness to think that there's a chance that you can go there, then it's okay.
Cool.
But I think he knew his customers. He was a very experienced sponsor.
Yeah.
So he knew don't go too much there with this guy. Just
the last thing you want is to pressure somebody and they turn around and leave.
Exactly. So, but what happened with me is in sobriety, I actually, and it's like part of the pun, got the soberness of thoughts about religion and about everything that this hamster the wheel saying questions that I've had over and over again. And last year, and it's going to sound
So you've got
funny
the
now.
concept of insanity. Sorry to interrupt you then.
Yeah, probably, yes,
So
absolutely.
you keep on doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different answer. The
Absolutely.
answer didn't change because the question stayed the same.
Absolutely. So last year, I allowed myself, I decided, okay, now I'm going to go and explore atheism.
Okay.
So I went for it. I bought the books.
I'm frowning. You're the first person I've ever encountered who said, I went to explore atheism. Okay.
No, it was like, I call 2017 my atheist year.
So you're
I've decided.
a very cerebral person. You think about stuff, you investigate it, you make a choice based on information.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that, like I've done with the book that I read about veganism
Yeah.
and documentaries I saw about it, I did the same thing then at that stage. And I was ready last year to do it. I think earlier I wasn't ready to do it. So I got books like The God Delusion, The End of Faith, God is Not Great. I watched stuff on YouTube. I went for the killing. I went for it all. And the thing is, all of that, I mean, that's the guys that talk about the four horsemen of atheism. Marius and the others. And they are so good. Whenever you see a debate with them or somebody that's religious, they usually win. So they're very convincing. And all of that, what they said made so much sense to me, the scientific approach, evolution, etc., etc., etc. And I got to that point where I saw myself now as an atheist. And I thought, okay, this is it now. This is now my voice. This is where I am. And it worked for me till it did not work for me. So, end of last year, I was confronted, being a bit more than 2 years in sobriety. Stuff started coming up for me why I actually, in the first place, I think started drinking too much. I'm talking about friends, our old friends, stuff like codependency.
Oh God, yeah.
And that stuff.
That's my new friend, by the way. There's a step work.
And I was like, I looked back at my life and I saw these codependency patterns and stuff that happened with me, and I thought, where was I? Why did I not see this? So I decided to, that stuff was so hectic in my life that I'm very sure that I've had an emotional relapse. And it's that stuff, and I got depressed. I got to a place of where I was so depressed that I even got suicidal, which was never part of my picture. And at the stage, I thought, if life in sobriety is like this, I might as well start drinking again. Because it was just this big place of misery. And I've got a wonderful sponsor, and he very kindly worked with all of this with me, and we did step work around all of this other stuff. And he left me alone regarding the God stuff. But he put a lot of emphasis on the fact that it is still important to surrender. And I have to say, I was at such a bad space that it forced me to my knees.
Okay.
And I just thought to myself, okay, let's just do this. I don't know what's out there. I don't know what to call it. I don't know what, but let's call it the mystery. It's a mystery, so let's call it the mystery. So that became a higher power. And so I started with a new vengeance doing the step work. And to answer your questions, not to make a long, short question, long answers. so that's where practical spirituality started happening with me this year, and where I am at the point where I actually realized that, you know what, the whole thing about there is a power greater than ourselves out there. There's obviously a power greater than ourselves out there. I mean, the power of two people is more than the power of one. That's already a power. So I decided not to give it all these semantics. I mean, the word God has so much semantics to it. People have got their own idea about it, and then it already takes the picture of a high power out of it. So no, let's not call it something. Let's just surrender to this mystery. And it was an amazing journey for me, and it still is an amazing journey for me, because I am actually at this point where I can start talking about using the word God. But although I say, remember, I still believe in evolution. And I don't say it was like I don't believe in that creator God that in 6 days or whatever. But so me believing in evolution means that higher power, God, whatever you want to call him, was there even before we could speak. So that higher power is not even measured in terms of semantics and words and stuff. So let's not even go with words to describe this. And let's unbox it. We don't need to box this. And let's just accept whatever and surrender.
Excellent.
And that works for me now.
Cool.
That is basically, at long last, I feel that I've got peace with this whole thing. It's taken me long. I'm a slow developer.
That happens sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. That would always materialize your work for it. Right, Marius, I can smell the food. I'm actually wondering if it's burning. But let's go and have lunch. Thank you
wonderful.
so much for bringing us on your journey with you. And have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you very much, Freddie, and thanks for asking me. It
You're
was
very
fun
welcome.
talking to you.
What a lovely early afternoon chat. Marius and I clicked very nicely, and I thoroughly enjoyed our Meet Me in the Field conversation, as well as a vegan lunch we had afterwards. I am ever so slightly embarrassed to say that I served him leftovers from a vegan Asian feast cooked for friends on the Sunday. Either way, we both enjoyed it thoroughly. It feels as if Marius has been on a journey with regards to his spirituality. I like how he is quite empirical, yet also open-minded to agree that some things need to be believed without seeing it. If you want to know more about what I do, please feel free to connect with me on my website, which is www.freddy.org.za, or find me on Facebook at either Meet Me in the Field, or Freddy Counselor, or Freddy van Rensburg, or on Twitter at RensburgFreddy, or Instagram, Freddy Counselor. Remember that Freddy is always spelled with an IE at the end. If you feel you have a spiritual journey to share with us, please contact me. We would love to hear from you. I'm currently working on an idea where I'm looking for someone who has taken the Hajj or any other significant spiritual journey to come and talk to us. If you have done something like this and are willing to share your experience with us, I shall greatly appreciate it. I want to thank Marius for his time and for sharing his views with Meet Me in the Field. Thank you for listening. Be safe. Bye.